Okay then, welcome back my friends. It is April 7th, 2023. And since the 2-week break we took here on the channel, the basis of topics we've been talking about here is a little bit of weather mixed with some of the bigger earthquakes we've been seeing, mostly along the Ring of Fire. And I will get to that in 1 second, but for those of you that don't know, we posted a video 2 weeks ago, as you can see right here, saying, are we being warned? Now the reason I originally posted this video is because we've been having a situation with our tsunami buoys, more specifically along the western coast of the US, almost up into Canada. And you can still see, as of right now, one of our main tsunami buoys, one of two actually, that monitor the entire western coast, has been going in and out of event mode for days now. In fact, if we switch just to the tsunami buoys, you can see there's a lot less here that cover what we would call a tsunami. In fact, out of the 4 buoys that do monitor this area of the country and parts of Canada, only half of them are working. As you can see, the 2 yellow ones are the only 2 that are actually active, that can actually produce data if something were to happen. The other 3, one being right on the border of Canada, that's why I said 4, so technically 5 of these buoys exist, but only 2 of them are functioning, and 1 continues to go into event mode almost on a daily basis for the last 2 weeks straight. Now I'm going to show you a diagram right after this that kind of explains this a little more. It's a little hard to see, but you get these little red signatures. Sometimes they're very dramatic and sometimes they're very small, just like you're seeing here. But this has been a consistent thing going on where this particular buoy, and then in one case, this buoy down here was in event mode for about 3 days, and then that was all the data we got. And then after that, most of the focus was put on this specific buoy near the Juan de Fuca fracture zone, or the Blanco fracture zone. And as I've stated in previous videos, there was some information about them testing this buoy, or both of those buoys, because the other ones are completely offline, which means they would produce 0 data if something were to happen. And as I explain what these buoys actually do and how they work, I want you to ask yourself, why are they testing these buoys on the west coast of the United States? I don't know about you, but in my opinion, they are preparing and or checking equipment, expecting some sort of near event to take place, because they usually take these buoys offline while they're testing them, and they're doing this right in the face of the public. We can see every single time that they are activating this buoy. Now very quickly, in a nutshell, this is how these buoys work. You see the buoy right here sitting on the surface of the water. It is anchored to the sea floor, but these are not your normal buoys. These have a very advanced type of technology involved with them, where if there's any disturbance in the water, even something as small as a boat hitting one of these buoys, I've heard of sharks biting at them, things like that, it will then send data down to what they call a bottom pressure recorder. You can see that right here, also anchored to the sea floor. Now basically picture this as an antenna or a data receiver, and once the information from the buoy is sent down to this receiver, it is then analyzed, it is sent back up to the buoy itself, then once again the buoy is triggered and then told to send information to a satellite. So even before we get a reading on these buoys, 4 significant things have taken place. The data is sent down, analyzed, resent to the buoy, and then it is sent to a satellite where it is once again analyzed, and finally and only then will that satellite release that data all the way to the National Data Buoy Center. And once the data is received by these antennas and or this complex, that is when the info is put out to the public. The buoy is then triggered, and then it is put out as public information, and you can see the buoy is being triggered right now. So although we have not had any major earthquakes or any sort of tsunami warning, we're still seeing an active buoy right now that has been going into activation mode almost on a daily basis. And I gotta say, I've never seen anything like this before. I've seen them test buoys over a few day period where they'll go into event mode for about 12 hours. Usually the rule of thumb is about 24 hours that these buoys will go off until they are reset and the data is analyzed until we know we don't have a threat. But in this particular particular case, this specific buoy, again, along the Juan Fuca fracture zone, it's one of the most dangerous fault lines we have actually in the world. Based on how the two tectonic plates meet, it almost makes like a set of steps here. And we've seen some large earthquakes in this area. We've had some warnings to Oregon and even Northern California at times when we see a big enough quake along this fault line. But the two theories about the big one, and you know what I'm talking about, specifically if you live in the West Coast, the big earthquake that we've been waiting for that is now over 100 years overdue. And that, my friends, was the 1906 San Francisco earthquake that completely decimated the entire city. Because of our infrastructure back then, basically every single building in the city collapsed and or was in a condition where it had to be torn down and rebuilt. They basically had to rebuild San Francisco as a whole back in 1906. Now, of course, this has always been a concern, specifically after we reached that 50-year period after that 1906 quake, being that history shows us that every 100 years a major quake of that size or bigger takes place along the western coast of the United States. And now, ever since this Turkey earthquake, there's been article after article after article talking about when it's going to be the eastern Pacific Ocean's turn to have a devastating earthquake. This article right here put out March 5th. It's very, very clear and cut. Where will the next big one be in California? Seismologists name faults of top concern. This basically means that they are speaking about the fault lines that are of most concern to the west coast of the United States. I'll leave this article in the description box for you guys to check out, but it basically talks about those fault lines we were just discussing and which one is most at risk for not if, but when this earthquake actually does take place. All right, and now one more thing I do want to point out. Since we've been talking about the big one and the California earthquake that's way overdue, we do have another culprit that can cause just as much damage, if not more, when it comes to a significant tsunami. And that is Alaska, the Aleutian Islands, that chain of islands that goes all the way into the beginning parts of Russia. We got the Bering Sea in between there, but time and time again, as you can see on this chart, it's a very active area for earthquakes, specifically big earthquakes. We've had some very, very large, some of the largest earthquakes that take place in this area, which are capable of doing the same exact thing as any other earthquake of a huge magnitude anywhere in the world, and that is creating a tsunami. So if there's any silver lining as far as our warning system for the United States and or Western Canada, if we were to see that giant earthquake take place in Alaska that did cause a wave, and then compare it to the tsunami buoys that we do have, you can very easily see that the entire chain of islands all the way into Alaska have plenty of those tsunami buoys. Of course, 3 of those are offline as well, but if something were to happen, let's just say in this area, this is usually where we get our large earthquakes from Alaska, but we would have a warning. These buoys would go off first, and then as hours pass by, it's almost like a ring pattern that would take place over time before reaching the western edge of Canada. We have this buoy here that would warn the immediate west coast of Canada, and then as that wave moved down, it would trigger these buoys before hitting the United States. So aside from the fact that we are going through this weird, odd testing of these buoys, which again, in my opinion, are tests that are being done to prepare us for something of that magnitude, at least if it were to happen in Alaska, we would have a lot more time and a lot more warning before we would know that this wave was going to hit any part of western US, all the way down towards Mexico, you name it. It would all depend on the size of the earthquake. So again, the positioning of these buoys is okay in my opinion. We just don't have enough of them. And the fact that we still have 3 offline really bothers me. We should have these things strung all the way down into Southern California, into the Baja region, and even Mexico, but that's just simply not the case. So we got to work with what we got, and at least understand we do have somewhat of a decent warning system, but it could be a lot better. And again, until I find some answers, I want to know why this buoy is being put out to the public as it's in event mode consistently. It's making making people wonder, not just me. I have plenty of comments in the videos where I cover this topic of why this buoy keeps going off and why they don't just shut it off, fix it, and then let it just do its job. But yet here we sit once again, another day later with this buoy in event mode, and it just makes your mind wander and wonder about what possibly could be going on. Do they know something that we don't? Or is it time to really start preparing for that over 100-year due earthquake that's not possibly going to happen, but is going to happen? I know that's some scary stuff to think about, but it's very important to know what's going on and to be aware of these situations. My friends, I hope you enjoyed the information in this video. Please leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think is going on here. I love getting the feedback from you guys. In fact, 90% of my videos are based off of ideas you guys give me, so I couldn't be more grateful for that. And you know I'll be back here to update you on any situations involving this or anything else crazy that goes on in this world. I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. Shout out to Canada, and you know I will see you all in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye. Stop right there, my friends. If you have not already, click that subscribe button and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Click all and you will get all notifications from this channel. And trust me, you won't be disappointed.